All right, folks, once again, I am Tom Downey. You are watching NFL Daily presented by BetDSI, the internet's #1 sportsbook. Let's head now to some NFL coaching rumors, and one rumor that just won't die. It's John Harbaugh and a trade, in particular, the Miami Dolphins. Now, we know how much the Dolphins owner, Stephen Ross, loves Jim Harbaugh. His brother John is probably the next best thing, and I have a tough time seeing Stephen Ross wanting to impact Michigan to help his NFL team. But he can go get John Harbaugh. Now, PFT reports that the Dolphins are likely to call about a John Harbaugh trade. Now, remember, before the Chargers game a couple weeks ago, the Ravens publicly announced they were going to extend John Harbaugh. That hasn't really calmed down the buzz about a potential trade, though, and we don't really know what the asking price is. Pro Football Talk said one source thought it could be 2 first-round picks. I don't think it'd be that high for a coach, but who knows? I don't think the Ravens want to give away John Harbaugh. In fact, I know they don't want to. But I think you'll hear more and more buzz about this, especially if the Ravens come up short against the LA Chargers. So I ask you, will the Ravens coach will John Harbaugh coach the Ravens next year? Type Y for yes. Stop laughing, producer Dominique. Type N for no. I think yes. I think he'll be the head coach next year in Baltimore. I don't think the Ravens want to give away a really, really good head coach. They've been public about their intentions to assign him to an extension. I think it'll get done. I'll take you now to some more NFL rumors. How about those who said no? Eric Bieniemy said no to the Arizona Cardinals. They wanted to interview him. He was like, I don't want to. Instead, he's going to interview with the Bucs, the Bengals, the Giants, or the Jets, and the Cardinals. Or the Dolphins. Darn it. Anyway, that's not really a promising sign for the Cardinals because you didn't get the chance to interview one of the guys you wanted to. I guess Bieniemy thought 4 was enough. I think he makes sense for all 4 of those teams mentioned. In particular, I think the Bengals and the Jets are the 2 most likely outcomes of those 4. We know Bieniemy has ties to the Cincinnati Bengals. The Jets need an offensive mind. Watch out for him. And he's had success, by the way, then I should say, the Andy Reid coaching tree. Next man up seems to always be a very common theme there for head coaching hires from the Reid coaching tree. As for Arizona, here have been their head coaching interviews so far. Kliff Kingsbury, he was one, which we'll talk more about that in a little bit. Adam Gase, Zach Taylor, Dan Campbell, those have been there for, but assuming Eric Bieniemy does get hired by an NFL team, which one will it be? Let me know in the comment section where you think Bieniemy will end up. I will put my money on the Cincinnati Bengals. I pray to God they go outside. We'll talk about them, though, in a little bit. But first, today's show is brought to you by BetDSI. Head over to chatsports.com/bet. Use promo code LIVE120. And then once you do that, let us know. DM us on Twitter at ChatSports. We'll get you guys hooked up with an NFL jersey. Chatsports.com/bet. Promo code LIVE120 gets you a 120% deposit bonus. Folks, this is the best deal out there if you're trying to bet on games while you still can before the NFL and college football season is over. Chatsports.com/bet. Promo code LIVE120. All right, we mentioned the Bengals. Well, they're not going to get an interview with offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels because he's not interested. And if you play back the tape when we talked about McDaniels and the Bengals, I said I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't want to interview. Because why would he? If you're McDaniels and somehow you're still coveted by NFL teams, why would you go to the Bengals? I am from Cincinnati. I say this with the utmost respect. This job is not good. People don't want to go coach for Mike Brown. This is, if you rank all 8 NFL head coaching gigs that are open, this one is dead last. And I think the interviews also kind of back that up. Here's who the Bengals have interviewed so far. Hugh Jackson, who we'll get to in just a second. Darren Simmons, the special teams coach. Bill Lazor, who was bad as the OC. Vance Joseph, who got fired. Zach Taylor, Shane Waldron, good on the Bengals for those guys. Eric Bieniemy, and Todd Monken, the Bucs OC. A common theme there is an offensive mind. But in the end, I don't foresee the Bengals getting a big-name head coach. I just don't think that's the route they'll be able to end up going. They're not going to get Mike McCarthy. He's going to have other interest in the end. All right, speaking of Hugh Jackson, oh God. Yes, indeed, he is going to interview with the Cincinnati Bengals, to wit, I just say, but why? But why would you do this if you're the Cincinnati Bengals? I know that Marvin Lewis recommended him, which I think is a negative for him, and I know their initial plan was to bring him in, have Marvin go to the front office role, and have Hugh Jackson be the head coach. But hiring Hugh Jackson would be the worst head coaching hire in NFL history. It might not end up being of a time, but for what we know right now, you cannot find a worse one. This is worse than Jim Tomsula. This is worse than some of those Jets hires way back when. This would be a disastrous hire because how can you sit there, any member of the Bengals organization, and say, we think we found the right guy after what you saw in Cleveland? It's one thing to admit that the Browns had a bad roster. Hugh Jackson was a negative, and that was very clear because the second Hugh Jackson was gone, the Browns played like a playoff team. So yeah, I am not interested in Hugh Jackson. If the Bengals hire Hugh Jackson, Mike Brown should be stripped of ownership for incompetence, because clearly the man is not right in the head if you hire Hugh Jackson after what we saw from the Cleveland Browns as your head coach. All right, back to the Browns. How about Mike McCarthy? Could the Browns be an option for him? I say yes. I think this makes quite a bit of sense because we know the ties that already exist, right, between McCarthy and the Browns front office. John Dorsey was there. Alonzo Highsmith and Elliott Wolf worked for over a decade with Mike McCarthy. Now, he will also interview for the Jets head coaching job, and I think it's noteworthy that the two jobs McCarthy's been linked to so far, the Browns and the Jets, already have head coach in place, and in reality are probably two of the more coveted jobs out there right now because they have a young quarterback in place, be it Baker Mayfield, be it Sam Darnold. If you believe in those two guys, and I think McCarthy does, then it makes sense to go after one of those two gigs. Now, I'll give the Browns credit, much like some other teams, they're casting a wide net in their NFL head coaching search. Kevin Stefanski, the OC for the Vikings. Jim Caldwell. Mike Munchak. I'm not as in love with those two guys. Mike McCarthy, Dan Campbell on there. They've also interviewed some other coaches. Greg Williams got an interview. Freddie Kitchens got an interview. Nick Sirianni and Matt Eberflus, the Colts coordinators, got interviews. Brian Flores as well. I don't think they're done yet. I think Bruce Arians also makes some sense there. So as for McCarthy, though, should the Browns hire him? Let me know in the comments section. I think sure. I think it'd be a good hire. My ideal scenario, though, for the Browns is this. Hire Bruce Arians and keep your two coordinators and let Freddie Kitchens take over as head coach 3 or 4 years from now. That's a great fit, but if not, I think Mike McCarthy makes quite a bit of sense. All right, folks, today's show is brought to you by BetDSI, the internet's #1 sportsbook. Head over to chatsports.com/bet. Use promo code LIVE120 for a 120% deposit bonus. And then DM us on Twitter @ChatSports. Once you do that, we will send you guys an NFL jersey once you guys sign up and deposit. It's the best deal out there. Again, chatsports.com/bet. Use that promo code LIVE120. It's the best betting deal you'll find. And then DM us on Twitter @ChatSports to get an NFL jersey. If you didn't get what you wanted for Christmas, you can change that right now by getting this one in. All right, next up, Adam Gase and the Jets. Is he going to be an option there? He was fired by the Jets, or the Dolphins, on Monday, and will now interview for the Jets head coaching gig, which I find it interesting that Adam Gase is getting interviews here for around the NFL because he wasn't that great in Miami. And I liked Adam Gase. I thought he'd be a good hire. He really wasn't. And in hindsight, maybe I underestimated this fact. Which quarterback got better under Adam Gase that he's coached? Which one? I know he was good with Peyton Manning, but Peyton Manning could have had me as a head coach and he would have won games. So I don't know if I necessarily believe that. We'll see who else the Jets end up going after. They've got other interviews that they've had so far. They've interviewed guys like Eric Bieniemy and Mike McCarthy and Jim Caldwell, Chris Richard, at least they want to interview him, Todd Monken and Kliff Kingsbury, who we'll get to in a little bit. But who will the Jets hire as their next head coach? Let me know in the comments section. If the Browns don't nab Mike McCarthy, I think he would be an ideal fit for New York because he's proven himself as an NFL head coach. Yeah, things ended badly, but McCarthy has interest for a good reason, especially compared to guys like Kliff Kingsbury, who, I can't believe I'm saying this, is interviewing for NFL head coaching jobs. Are we serious, NFL? He got fired by Texas Tech this year. And I know he's a good offensive mind. I know that he'd be a good OC. But this is the ultimate failing upwards move. You get fired from your alma mater as a head coach. And NFL teams want to hire you to come do an even harder job that's a better job? Look, if Kliff Kingsbury was like Lincoln Riley, I'd understand it, but he's not. He didn't win games. And I know Lincoln Riley also had defensive issues, so did Kliff. I would never understand hiring Kliff Kingsbury as an NFL head coach. You cannot tell me that you can't find a better head coach candidate than Kliff Kingsbury, who was fired by a lesser Big 12 team. Doesn't make sense. Who hasn't even had a chance to rehab his stock. Hiring Kliff Kingsbury would be an absolute disaster. All right, folks, if you like what I am wearing, it's a Mizzen and Main shirt, so go get one of your own. Comfortable.af is the site. Go check them out. They have more than just dress shirts. Heck, even make me look passable on air, so imagine what they could do for you. Comfortable.af is the site. Go check them out. Mizzen and Main. All right, next up, Pat Fitzgerald. Could the Packers still try to hire him? Now, he said publicly after their bowl win, which I bet on, by the way, bet DSI, that he is going to stay at Northwestern, but the Packers still want to interview him. And he was hired, by the way, at Northwestern by head coach Mike Murphy, excuse me. Mark Murphy hired him at Northwestern when he was the Green Bay Packers president. All right, so he said he wants to stay at Northwestern, but Green Bay still wants to interview him. I'm not surprised. I'll tell you this right now. If the Packers hire Pat Fitzgerald, that is a clear sign that Mark Murphy and Mark Murphy alone is running this organization, not the GM. I don't know if they will. I think Josh McDaniels makes sense, but this would be a Mark Murphy hire. We'll see if it actually ends up going down. I know Fitzgerald loves his alma mater and for good reason, but it'd be an interesting hire in the end if Green Bay went this route. As for their other head coaching interviews so far as relates to the Packers, they've cast a wide net too. Jim Caldwell, Chuck Pagano. McDaniels, I think right now is the favorite. Dan Campbell, Brian Flores, and then some names I'm not in love with. Mike Munchak, Matt LaFleur, Joe Philbin was kind of more of a courtesy interview, but that's where things sit right now. I think McDaniels is the favorite. Pat Fitzgerald, if he actually does want to leave Green Bay in the near future, or leave Northwestern for Green Bay, I think is a dark horse candidate. But let me know what you guys think in the comments section.